Yeah.
And we're going to go back on.
Right, welcome back, councillors. We'll move straight into item 9.10, the capital inside the 12-month performance report. So welcome to the finance team, to Sarah, to Beth and to Raj. In your good hands.
Mayor Tracy and councillors. So I'm here with Raj and Sarah, obviously, big panel today to present the 12-month report. I'm going to take the report as read. Happy to take any questions along the way. So as we've previously done, we're going to split the sections off, and I'll cover the OPEX variances. Sarah will jump in and do service performance measures, and she's standing in today to do the CapEx report for Mike. I'll cover off Treasury, and Raj is going to jump in and do the debtors report for us. And then I'll finish off with the self-funding activities, which is the forestry and pensioner housing. As we've previously done, I will go through the report. So if we go to page 179, which is our performance dashboard for the year ended 30 June 2024, and I'll talk to this. So from this dashboard in figure 1, you can see that at the end of the year, we achieved a favourable operating result of 26.8 million compared to what we had planned of 14.8 million. Most of this is due to higher than expected revenue from external funding. So from the graph, you can see that subsidies from external funding make up 37.99% of the revenue that we receive, which is around about 99% of our operating revenue. Most of this is due to 3 main components, which is the Wakakatahi subsidy for Cyclone Gabrielle damage to the roading network, our Route 52 funding that we received, and our recovery response for Cyclone Gabrielle as well. Coming off the revenue, we've got operating expenditure, operating costs being unfavourable to budget. So if we go back to the graph, we can see that we're at year end, we are 26.5 million overspent. This relates to our revenue side. So most of this is due to our expenditure that we've incurred due to the recovery for Cyclone Gabrielle. Sorry, that nets off. For Cyclone Gabrielle, we had contracting costs of off against the funding that we received for Cyclone Gabrielle, 23.5 million. Another driver for the operating costs being higher than budget was our insurance premiums. So they've increased this year by around about 200k. Figure 3 on page 181 just gives us a trend in the increases of the insurance over the years since 2020. Back in 2020, our insurance premiums were sitting at around 550k, and they've more than doubled. If I talk about the operating costs that were favourable against budget, again, our costs that we had budgeted for the external projects, they are below what we had anticipated the spending to be, and a lot of that was due to work being stopped in that funding space as we redirected our resources elsewhere. So as we go through the report, you'll see the different activities where we'd allocated funding to those activities, but work in that area had been stopped and we'd redirected. the resources. The other operating costs that are underspent at year end are power and council grants that were paid out overall. We go on to page 182. Our staffing costs, although they do seem higher than budget, we're sitting at 887 at year end, higher than budget. It's important to note that of this, 667,000 is due to employee leave accruals. So this is a year end, sorry, on page 182. So this is as part of preparing our annual report, we do non-cash adjustments. And the employee leave accruals are just a liability that we need to record in the account. So this is how much if all the staff were to leave at year end, this is how much council would need to pay out. So if we took that out of the equation, we would have a net unfavourable variance of $219,000. Of this, we've got some unbudgeted resources that were filled in during the year, but
Can I just stop and take a couple of questions? I've got Councillor Gilmore, Councillor Franklin, and Councillor Wards.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Thanks, Beth, for running that through. I I did have a note just about the leave accruals in there, and I think I might have mentioned this last time as well, so you might have to refresh my memory just a little bit. But I've got two questions on that. First of all, are the accruals higher than what we would expect at this point? And then my second question is, and I'm trying to get my head around why that can't be included in the budget somehow, so it doesn't show as a variance, because we're always going to have leave accruals.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. To answer the first question, yes, I think you have asked this before, and we talked about how the process is and within our systems to be able to enable that. It takes a bit of mechanics behind the scenes. We have our program specialist coming on site tomorrow, so I will perfectly timed question talk to him around that. Just wanting to make sure though that if we do put it into the activity level like it has hit, it will then want us to rate for it. So although it's a liability and it is a cost that would be incurred, do we want to rate for it is the question. My answer would be no. The second question is around, is it on par with where we sort of anticipate it to be? I think it's on par with prior years, to be honest with you, but when next week we have an extraordinary council meeting around the annual report, you'll get the full detail of what that is. So I will make a note to highlight so that I can talk to the comparison for you at that point, if that's okay.
Thanks heaps, Sarah. Yeah, that's to recall some of those conversations. I suppose my concern is, and I'm not saying we should have to rate for it, is it does flag up on all of these reports as being a variance. So however we might want to report that, it's finding a way that, for me, when I'm looking at it, I'm going, yep, that's expected. And then I can see. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Worship. Pretty much similar question as what Councillor Scott asked. My question goes a bit beyond that, and that is to ask the question, a few years ago, our accrued holiday leave was massive, and there was quite some concern from council about how much it accrued. And I thought they'd put some sort of provision in place where staff had to use their leave annually. Is that the case or not?
Through your worship, yes, staff are allowed through approval of their managers to carry forward 1 week across a year. If they're carrying forward more, then they need to have what they call a leave plan in place to ensure that they consume the leave. And I think, like what Sarah alluded to, I think, yes, a couple of years ago, I think coming out of COVID, the leave balances were really high. And I think there has been an effort through management and to HR to ensure that we are keeping an eye and monitoring, ensuring the staff are not accumulating significant amount of leave. So Sarah is right in terms of comparable to last year, I think we are on par.
Thank you, Raj. Appreciate that. No, it was just that, it is a liability on the books, and that's where I've always been a bit concerned. And when I saw that figure this time, I thought, oh,
Through your worship, and just further to that, there is the provision of leave buy-up up to 1 week, so some staff have also utilised that option.
Thank you, Brian. Just to add to that, I think liability is an important part of it. I think the second part is well-being. I think that was the focus that management and HR had in looking at largely balances of staff well-being.
Councillor Waters.
Thanks, Your Worship. In the next bullet point, you've referred there, Beth, to unbudgeted roles in building, solid waste and recovery. I've worked out solid waste because of the changes that were obviously made. So I have a question. Building, but more particularly recovery function activities. I thought they were A, covered by recovery money, and B, I thought we were well on track in the last year to, or were there some additional roles that
So what we mean by unbudgeted, meaning that in terms of our annual budgets, our rate funding portion is not budgeted. So solid waste activity, change in contract, brought significant staff on board. The corresponding cost was contract cost dropped.
Right.
Building services, we brought on board 2 building officers, corresponding our contract costs decreased. In terms of recovery, we got funding for the recovery team. So you have a funding element that's coming in, but the cost wasn't budgeted for. But you're looking at a net impact on council is positive, because in some areas we make savings by bringing staff.
Thank you for that explanation.
Carry on. So if I go back to bullet point 2 under 5.8, so if we removed the unbudgeted roles and the external the recovery function from that variance, unfavourable variance of 219 overspent, we'd actually see a favourable variance in staff costs of 392k. I'm not too sure how you would like me to approach the detailed explanations of the significant variances. I think previously we've gone through each activity individually. However, would you like just to do questions? Just
All councillors have read this. I am happy if people have just got questions, but if there is anything specific that you want to highlight for the benefit of people online, feel free to do that as well. But councillors, if you've got any questions on this.
I could, I may actually just talk about in the 3 waters section, there is an unfavourable variance, but there is a reason for that. So if we could look at page 187 of the report. So you'll see across the 3 waters activity, stormwater and water supplies, they do show an unfavourable variance of around about 900k. Then we net off that the wastewater, we've got a positive variance of 247k. So the reason why those 3 activities are showing such a significant variance is due to the infrastructure acceleration funding. So the way that they had been budgeted against the activities didn't quite align with when the funding came in, how it was allocated. So you'll see that where we had budgeted for most of the funding to come under the stormwater had been shifted to the wastewater. So that explains why there's a big shift in the variances there. We had received the full amount of 857k. at year end. Um,
No, that's, I'm fine, don't worry.
Sorry, that was just one thing I wanted to talk about. If we removed the external funding factor from those activities, we would see in the stormwater an unfavourable. You'll see an unfavourable variance sitting in there, but that was due to, as part of the annual report, we had to reallocate some costs that had gone to CapEx into OpEx. So overall, that was 183 unfavourable compared to the 706,000. Wastewater, the unfavourable variance ended up being 200k sitting in there, but that is due to another book entry that we do at year end, which is to do with our internal loans. For those of you who don't know how the internal loans work, it's just a mechanism where rather than going out and borrowing external debt, raising more external debt, we utilise the surplus of funds within council's activities to fund projects, and then at year end we do a charge to those activities that have borrowed against the internal funds through a charge back the interest. Is that a good explanation, Raj? So where it does look a bit frightening, because that throughout the report there are quite significant unfavourable variances that are driven by the unbudgeted interest charges. They're just to do with our internal loans. You can see on page 188 under the water supplies, most of that, if we took away the external funding, we have an unfavourable variance of 629k. Of that 629k, 510 of that is interest charges on our external loans.
Thanks, Beth. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Yeah, I don't have a huge number of questions on this, which I think is testament to the level of explanation that's been put in. The only other one I have on the list is item number 10, back on page 185, and it's the Regulatory Services Building and Compliance Monitoring. And well aware of that, that's of no surprise to any of us. My question more though is, and I can't remember exactly what we budgeted for in the LTP, but obviously there's been quite a variance because we haven't had as much building activity going on. Has that been accounted for in our new budgets moving forward? So we've accounted for expecting that drop off to continue. I don't expect the answer right this second, but it was just what jumped out at me because we've seen this sort of coming through our reports, making sure we've got that boxed off.
If I can jump in and Jim, as you can correct me, we took a bit of a conservative view in the LTP, because when I was talking to Jim and Carla about the budgets, we did see it actually coming down and declining a little bit, but I think what surprised us this year was really. So even though we have taken a conservative, if it picks up, if it continues at this level, then I think we may not receive the corresponding revenue. But what we've also done is that by bringing the staff in-house, we can sort of turn off the tap, because we're not processing that consent. They're not incurring or engaging the contractors. But what it then raises for us would be that by the staff to bring capacity, the budget is looking at catching up. So there's a plan in place as to how we use the capacity efficiently and effectively.
Raj, thanks very much for that, because that was literally going to lead into my next part of, I'm always delighted when we bring things in-house, because there's obviously benefits of doing that, but ensuring that that we're able to appropriately use that effort. So I appreciate that. I think that's a good message to share.
Corey, did I interrupt a comment of yours when I had you quite finished? I think
I was actually, thanks, me Tracy. I was actually just going to mention that while we've got the unfavourable variance across the activities and the interest expenses, we've got the other end coming off Treasury. So that's where you'll see a favourable variance in the Treasury section of 779k.
If I can add to that, Mary Tracy, I think it's quite important what Beth and Sarah are doing in terms of allocating, because what we're doing, rather than most of it sits in treasury and be allocated on allocation basis, by putting the cost in the activity, you have an ability next year when we plan to allocate the cost to the specific activity, then you're funding it the correct tool, meaning water is going to be meter water charges and targeted rates, whereas stormwater is going to be a targeted rates, whereas wastewater. So I think it's quite important as a team
Look to see how they can allocate cost where it sits, then you're funding it correctly in the activity itself.
rather than putting in treasury and funding it for a general rate.
Are there any other further questions in the OPEX?
I think it's very thorough. Thank you, Beth.
I'll move into the service performance measures section. First off, wasn't until Councillor Franklin was asking a question around the water usage loss that it resonated with me that we had planned to provide the draft annual report, which has the full detail of all of our service performance measures captured within it. But because we were still waiting on our valuation, we have an extraordinary meeting next week so that we could give you, you haven't actually seen these results. So I apologise profusely for that. Happy to tackle this a couple of ways. I can chat to what's in the report. I've got an answer to your question that you did ask earlier, Alison. And then I can maybe pick it up when we bring the annual report back if you like. I'm so sorry. I didn't even cotton on that I'd written the report around that way. So I'll just chat to it just quickly. I think we do have the full survey report that's attached. I'm sure there'll be questions that come out of that. But just at this stage in the draft that you will be receiving, Council has met 62% of its service performance measures compared to 63% when we presented the draft to you last year. This is down slightly from the third quarter where we were tracking at 67%. However, you'll recall there's a lot of mandatory measures that we don't get a measure or a result in until come year end. So I have focused the report around the mandatory measures and just explaining where we've not met. These are all the DIA measures. I won't go into it too much. There is one around the Wakakatahi for our smooth travel exposure. Wakakatahi have changed the way in which this is measured. We are still waiting for this information to be released, so this might change before we adopt a final annual report, but at this stage I've marked it as not met, just in case. In the wastewater activity, we have the abatement notices and the infringement notices, which has meant that there's some of the mandatory measures not met for those reasons. In the water activity, there we have not met 7 of our 15 mandatory measures. I've given you quite a bit of detail in there. Within the mandatory measures, there's two compliance measures that we need to adhere to around the drinking water quality assurance rules. I've given you from the report a full breakdown of how many days we sort of missed the boat per site. Unfortunately, with not all 7 being compliant, it means that those 2 measures are not met. And then we go into the community survey results. I'm sure there'll be questions asked, so I might just stop there and wait. I'll give you an answer. I'm so sorry, Alison. Councillor Franklin, the water loss, which is based off our minimum night flow, which is between the hours of 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. at the moment is sitting at 62.7%. So we are just revisiting the way in which this is calculated, but we are mandated by the DIA to calculate it a certain way. This information is due back next week. So this measure may change, and if it does, I'll make sure to keep you in the loop.
Actually, it's very similar to what it was all those years ago when Chris said he put those bulk meter readers on. It was around the 60-65% then, and we were horrified when we, desperately short of water at times, and we have the issue with the dam. It's scary. Thank you.
Any further queries, and we will look forward, we'll go through that thoroughly.
Okay, then I will put my Michael hat on and I will jump into the program. Mike's given quite a bit of detail here. I just, from my perspective, from my finance perspective, just wanted to do a quick comparison, and I think he has actually done it on page 193 to where we were for the 2023 year. So based on our actual spend against the budget, which does include the carry forwards, this year we're sitting at 74.89%. Last year, this was only at 54.18. Another cool statistic, I guess, is in 2023, we had 206 projects, and at year end, we reported 82 being complete. This year, we have 211 projects, of which 111 of those are at complete stage, with 53 in delivery. And then in planning procurement, the number has reduced quite a lot from prior years. This is credit to the projects team and their methodology, and the ELT, I guess, as well, for helping us, get this change in behaviour, change in culture happening within the organisation, which is extremely exciting to see, especially from a finance perspective. It helps us plan better. By no means are we finished. We're on a journey, and we're continuing to grow and develop and work on this more. Is there any questions in the CapEx space?
Certainly achieving some good results in that space. I look forward to Audit New Zealand. It's something that they look at very closely. Look forward to seeing their comments and views on those practices as well. Are there any further questions there for the team? No? Okay, I've got a recommendation, not quite. Yes, sorry.
All right, I'll just keep this brief. Treasury section, relatively short this quarter. What I would like to highlight, actually, and I'll give a bit of explanation behind it, is on page 202 of the Treasury dashboard.
Sorry, it takes a bit to catch up on.
Sorry. You can see from the graphs that are provided that our cash position at the end of the year is down to where we plan to be. And there is an explanation to that. So when we budget for our cash, can't get that word out today, cash position in the annual plan, we base it on the previous year's cash from the annual report. So that's why you'll see that 6.2 had been budgeted to be sitting in the bank at 30 June. You'll see our actuals is 2.7 million, and that is because we had more cash invested in term deposits at year end. So this cash position section here just shows our cash at bank and any term deposits that are less than 90 days. And anything over and above that gets put onto long-term investments. So if we do a comparison, this year we've got 4.7 million sitting in as term deposits, and compared to last year we had 5.8 million. So although it does look like we didn't hit where we had planned to be, we do have the money in the bank, it's just invested. We also had the ability the last quarter to pre-fund some debt. I don't know if I really need to cover that off. We all understand what the pre-funding aspect is. And then we borrowed some additional funding just to fund our short-term borrowings that are coming up for maturity in this one, the next 6 months as well. We've already covered off the financing costs, so that was pretty much on budget. Although the interest expense is slightly higher just due to the increase in the interest rates. I think that is all I need to cover off in the Treasury section, unless you have any questions.
Your worship, I'll walk through quickly the debtors report early and just highlight a few things to you, and also talk about a way forward for us and what plans we have. So if I refer you to page 205, there's quite a critical table for a kind of highlight situation. So what we're seeing in end of last financial year is that we started the financial year with a 2.3 million in terms of arrears, debtors owing, and that has increased at the in 12 months in June 25 to 2.96. So that's for us is something I want to highlight, that it has increased. If you then go on down to the next page in para 10.4, just page 206, what the team has been focusing on in the current year is looking at how we could be more, want of a better word, I guess, be a bit more aggressive in how we are managing our debtors. And if you look to para 10.4.4, we have progressing quite a fair bit of properties through what we call a rating sale process. That means we're putting a lot of properties who owes rates consistently over many years, and finding it quite difficult to bring them on board regard to paying the rates. We are now going through what we call the legal process with those properties. Another graph that I like to, and we're going to do more of this, councillors, because the last time we were here, and I think one of the comments you made is you wanted to see trends, you wanted to see how performance is rather than a snapshot. So figure 17 on page 207, it's one of the charts that we're going to start showing a little bit more of trend analysis. We want to show you how debt is being managed across multiple years so that you could see a pattern or a trend, and that will give us a much better picture about, I would say, performance and how we're managing our debtors. So figure 17 shows you the arrears as a percentage of rates revenue. As our rates revenue year on year increases, as you could see, we're no longer having the 4 to 5%, we're having the 10, 11% rates increase. We just want to check to make sure how our arrears are increasing. It is in a trend with the rates increase, but we want to see a trend the other way. We want to see it come down. So that's in holistic in figure 17. What I've also done in figure 18, the following page in 208, is remove two elements of the debtors, the rating sales and the abandoned land that we're going through what we call a legal process. If we just look at what we say debtors who are falling behind on rates, who are on payment plans, that percentage is lower than the overall. To us, this is the high risk. This is where our focus should be and how we are managing it. So what has happened is Ellen and myself caught up with DMC. We use Debt Management Central to manage our debt. They are our collection agency. They have expertise in the space. We've caught up with them, and with the change in resource in the team, we've engaged them to manage our debt in the interim. As part of the process, we're asking them to do what we call a deep dive into analyzing the debtors that we have currently into the various categories. We're also asking them to review our business process and recommend to us and how we should go about in improving in the process in which how we're managing our debtors. So hopefully when we resource the team, when we take it back from DMC, it is a process that's much more polished and defined so that the team can manage the process. I even have an option of living with DMC for a longer period so that they can get on top of this issue.
I'm going to take a question if I can, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I just want to, and thanks Raj for the info. I just want to do a bit of a jump back to page 204, figure 12, if I may. This is our standard debtors arrears sort of numbers. And I suppose in light of what we're now aware of with the higher number of debtors, this figure 12 is clearly not accurate. So I was a bit surprised to see it in there reported like this. Are we going to be able to have a report that shows our total position debtors, including the error that we as council are working on at the moment with direct debits? That's my first question.
Through your worship, as we go through the error, we're confirming as to how much of those errors are really included in these numbers and how much they are not. So once we've concluded that review, we'll be able to come back and tell you whether the 1160 is a number that's inclusive of the error that we found or the exclusive. So that's what we're trying to get to, because when we look at arrears, we're looking at owing. The error means that those on direct debit has got an owing balance with us and a credit balance with us. So just got to make sure that we understand that we split out the two. So yes, after the review, we're able to come back and confirm what you call the arrears balances.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? Thanks very much, Your Worship. That makes sense, Raj. Respectfully, can I request the next time that this is reported through to us, if we haven't got to the point of having fully accurate information or we don't have the full picture, if we could have a caveat added there that covers it. And I'll just do my second question quickly, if that's okay, Your Worship, and then I'm out. Noting that we have a higher number of arrears coming through, more of a question of interest. Are we receiving quite a lot of pseudo-legal arguments as to why people aren't wanting to pay rates, or is that just a small amount of noise that I see online? I'm just wondering what real impact that might be having, if any.
Just to clarify, is that for the error in the DD, or is it for general debtors? Sorry.
Yeah, just very quickly. Just more talking about general debtors. Made a note on page 206, just when we're having a look at some of the arrears are growing. So this is the direct debit error aside. I'm just curious to know if we are receiving a lot of pseudo legal arguments as to why they might not want to pay rates.
Through your worship, there has been a slight increase, but I wouldn't have thought it would be anything significant to impact these numbers. Yeah.
Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Just a comment to Raj. I'm probably one of the ones who've brought this up on and off over for a few years. And the thing that's always been of interest to me is just to see the trend, just so I get a feeling. And it's been a bit of a hobby of mine. And perhaps I should have talked about this a bit more. And I just said to Tracy the other day, I probably should have been a bit more forthcoming as things have turned out. But it wasn't a trend that'd be that noticeable, because if we look at the amount due under the current situation, it's taken 6 years to reach 400 grand. But because it's an area of interest to me, I looked at 10 or 12 end of year reports for other councils just in the last few days, and there was picked 4 small councils, 6 big councils, and I thought, how do they handle this? Interestingly enough, not one of them does this. They do nothing. They have, and so when I'm thinking, it was contrary to what I thought. We have put a lot of effort into this, and it's still confusing. Actually, parts of this, and I don't want to go into this now, but it's not.
Series 1.
Sorry, it's not. It's not. Yeah, there are. You can look at that and say that doesn't quite add up, and I've always thought that. But not one of the dozen councils I looked at for the end of year reports in any detail like this. now rating debtors. What they do is make some comments. I looked at Wellington, one other, and the comment might be the percentage of arrears relative to income, which you put into this in this one. And that's popped up into a couple. And some comments in the Treasury, debtors we're struggling a little bit with recent rate increases have caused some. Only comments, none of this. So I'm thinking, are we wasting significant accounting time doing this? Is there a better way to report on this? Maybe there is. It's different to what I thought, actually. But there's too much detail here. It probably is, but you can kind of see a trend. But I just looked at one here. If you straight away look at irregular payments, last year there was opening balance at $1,044,000, and I go through and it disappears, and I'm thinking, oh, God knows where that's gone. But I go down to the bottom. I don't want to get into that just here, but it's just two things that surprised me. We do more reporting in this area than any of the 12 counts I looked at. A lot of effort into this. And they just make a few trends, because I guess they just incorporate this process into general management of finances, which that's, and if we make some changes for the better of that, but just some comments really. So that's all.
Thank you, Councillor. And you're right. And that's why I started introducing the two graphs at the bottom. And I take on board the trend analysis, I think, tells a better picture than the tables. And that's what we want to do, because that measures for us performance and how well we're doing, how we're managing risk. What we will look to do is in the first quarter report or 6 months report, my intention is to revamp how we're reporting in this phase. Don't want to take away the transparency. That's very important for us, so that as governors, you get enough information to see how we're performing in this phase, given that the trend shows that overall debtors is it's not reducing, it's not in the correct trend. We want to make sure that we reverse the trend. So we may if I take the lead from we may report a little bit more, put a little bit more emphasis in this area. And then once we see a reversing of the trend, then I think we can go back to just a trend analysis and normal standard percentage. That's my take of it. And why in terms of effort required by the team is managing the debtors in those categories. So that's how we're managing it. So I'm trying to make sure as we report it, we're reporting the manner in which we are managing it. This is how we categorize it. And the reason why we categorize it is that some categories have a higher risk and then a lower risk. Those are regular payments of a lower risk because they aren't payments. Those are making irregular payments, they are higher risk. So our focus would be on those debtors. That's how we manage it. And we move them from categories. They can be starting off with the regular payments and they fall, and then they move into irregular payments. Then we manage them a bit differently. So when we push debtors to Debt Management Central to manage, are those debtors. So it's like slowly they progress from being good, not so good, to, okay, all right, you're struggling, let's push you to DMC to get you on board. But I take on board what you're saying. We want to make sure that our reporting is clear and addresses your risk. And I think your concern is that we're making sure that the trend is reversed, that we are managing a debt as well. And if there's any risk, I'm highlighting to you. But an area that we want to flag to you, is very important for us to flag to you, is the legal cases that we want to flag, because the output or the end of the legal cases would be an abandoned land process or a rating sale. That's important for us in transparency.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, carrying on from what Councillor Kerry said, through you, Chair, have we changed any policy settings for multiple owned properties for rates in the last 6 years?
Through your worship, can I just clarify what you mean by policy setting?
Well, what I'm saying is a particular building in this district, in this town. And the first time I brought it up, it was multiply owned, and they can't get hold of of the owners. So that's not the council's fault. That's the people that own the property's fault. So what I'm asking, to be fair to your department, surely we can say, well, your time's up.
Sure, I understand, but I'll try and see whether I could explain it. So properties, so we are required to recognize a ratepayer system. And in some properties, it's straightforward. In some properties, as you explained, Mr. Wallace, they got multiple owners. So in properties where multiple owners, we identify what we call as the ratepayer with whom we correspond with. And that's required by us. So it's either nominated by the multiple owners at the person A, or for Maori land, we go through a Maori land court and determine who would be the person that council recognizes as a ratepayer, who will receive all correspondences and everything. So then that person who's appointed is then responsible for the rates that they receive, and is responsible to ensure that they are engaging and talking to the multiple owners about the liability for rates. You're absolutely right. It's not council's responsibility. It is the responsibility of the person and the multi-property owners. And where we struggled with them paying the rate, then when we transfer them to Debt Management Central, they will follow up with the appointed ratepayer as responsible. So we need to recognize one person. For Maori Land Court, it's for Maori Land, it's a different process when we follow up on rates areas.
Yes, it is not Rangatanis. It's a building down by the rugby park, which I've had many people complaining because it's a fire hazard. It's a dope den, you name it. And it's been there for 10 years or more that I can remember. And every time we ask about getting rid of this, we can't because something's in our way. For health and safety, it's just bad news. But just supplementary, you just got that other one there about debt write-off. I just can't find it. I was reading it and I didn't mark it with me doodad. You said there was some debts here you wrote off. There's only a little figure, but I just want to know what actually what qualifies a write-off. Pretty clear, so maybe somebody could help me.
Try and find.
It's 2.2.1, I think.
Thank you, bro. I'm dead.
Review my iPad, Councillor Wallace.
I think I've got a power lead coming. Thank you. I'll sit in the booth.
So in council writes off rates. Through your worship, when council writes off where staff have got delegation or the cheaper write-off rates is when we go down the path of abandoned land process. We sell the land, we're not able to recoup the entire rates owing for the particular property. What's left as balance in the property, we tend to write off because there's no other owner which we can recover that amount. That's when we apply the top process. Where rates are owing, we don't do that. We use the tools that are in our rating toolkit to track the rates. And I think it's quite similar to the discussion we're having in the D process as well, as why we haven't gone on.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'll just add to that, any write-off of rates we have to declare and include within the annual report. So you'll see that figure come through that as well. And in the 24 annual report, there hasn't been any that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Hannah.
Maybe two, through your worship, maybe two more things backwards with the self-funding activities, pension, housing and forestry.
I'll take this quickly. Page 209, we talk about the forestry activity. And as we've previously mentioned, our forestry expenditure, our costs in that area are over budget, and that is due to the unbudgeted silviculture. I think Councillor Johns, I referred to them as harvesting costs last time, so I made sure I corrected myself. Time. Do you have any questions for forestry?
Just one through you, Your Worship, and it's probably the wrong place to ask, but do we have an update on the sale of the forest?
I knew this was coming. Progress, it was a bit slow in the process. The due diligence took a very, very long time. But good news, we have received the first 5% deposit. They have now lodged an application with the like I said, due diligence process was very difficult for us. They asked back and forth that many times for clarifications, and at some stage I just felt we should just move on, please. But we provided as much information as we could for them, and so I'm pleased that we progressed it. So good news.
Thanks.
I do enjoy when councillors find a wee opening to find an additional question there. Pensioner housing, Beth.
Right, so pensioner housing, as we've previously identified, we're over budget, and most of this is due to just unplanned maintenance costs across the flats that have taken place in this financial year. Some of it had been deferred from previous financial years, so we've caught up on the maintenance costs in this financial year. This has affected the balance of our pensioner housing reserve, but the team do have a plan moving forward on on rectifying this, which I've included the little scale. So moving forward, they're just looking to prioritise the maintenance and renewals. And this one, the second key one was just monitoring the operational and capital expenditure across that activity. Do you want to add anything else?
If I can, for you, Your Worship, the key lens, and I think one of the discussions we're going to have in this annual plan is not just looking at the program in which the maintenance and the renewal program. I think also revisiting the revenue profile. So we have to look at the rent of the fees and charges that we have for the pension housing. So I think there's a fair bit of work that this team are doing in this space. So there's an opportunity for us as annual plans to better deep dive in pension housing and how to manage this activity as a self-funding activity.
It's not a slightly cynical comment, but it's just occurred to me, is pensioner housing included in our section 17A? Huh.
Okay, Your Worship, we did a 17A review years back, and after the activity, we brought it back in out. And I think it's good for us to look at this in discussions, and then so it frames the discussion coming into the next outcome.
Hey, Tracy, I think when we looked at this a year ago, there's a real inevitability about expenditure being high and income remaining flat for a while. I don't think we can cope with, we're not going to be able to cope with this with increased rentals straight away. We're just going to have to bite the bullet here, because we're talking about decades of maintenance and the higher standards of healthy homes as clicked in now. So I think we'll just have to, whatever we do, and I think annual plan's a place for it, but we're gonna have to just bite the bullet and ride this horse for a while. Is it really?
You know,
Not gonna sell it. I don't think.
Thanks, councillor Sutherland. Right, is there anything further questions on pensioner housing? And really do appreciate that coming through. The recommendation, councillors, is to receive the 12-month performance report, which is on page 175. Get moved by councillor Wallace, seconded by councillor Chase. All those in favour, please say aye.
Yeah.
Item 9.11, welcome back. Report of Tararua District Licensing Committee.
Thank you. This report is something really the council needs to do with this. It's just included for your information only. It's also to show that I have in fact
299, page 299.
Just to show that I have in fact complied with the statutory requirement to complete the report and have forwarded it to the Alcohol Regulatory Licensing Authority and also the Ministry of Justice. All of these reports now are all online. So we've completed all that and popped out the written version so that the council can just have a look at how many liquor licenses and manager certificates we've put through the last year and the amount of funds that we pay ALA.
I just note in your comments on number 17, just around trying to introduce a controlled purchase operation with Te Wharaora. Let me know if you need any assistance with that.
Through your worship, not at this point. The liquor licensing officer with the police was a temporary appointment who the lady's gone off on maternity leave. So they're trying to patch that hole, I believe. So once they've done that, my intention is to run at least 2 per year. They're quite helpful. So yeah.
Thanks, so too. Any questions for Jim? Otherwise, the recommendation is on page 299 to receive the report.
Thank you.
9.12, the road closure for Ikirahona Town. I'll take that report as read. The recommendations are on page 315 and 316. The recommendation has been moved by councillor Gilmore, seconded by councillor Sutherland. All those in favour, please say aye. Lee.
Thank you. So the agenda, I put the monthly report on Lagoima requests received and processed. So it's been quite a few this past month. Been seeing, just tracking against last year's, quite a higher proportion of requests coming in this year compared to last year too.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and thank you very much, Ali, for your work in not only preparing this report, but doing the proactive releases. just more wanted to make a comment. I'm personally finding this incredibly helpful, that I can jump in and have a look at some of those proactive releases. It's certainly helping my understanding of certain issues, and having access to information at a similar time as what the public is having. So just wanted to commend you for that. I know that there's a significant amount of work, but thank you, and it's very useful.
Some of the proactive releases are really valuable. Is there any way of letting myself and councillors know when you've put one up on the website? Otherwise, I'm only doing this at the end of the month.
Our website allows for subscribing to a page to see when it's updated.
Yeah. So councils check that weekly.
And I'm just sort of doing it between other jobs, so it's like quite often there morning that I'm not trying to get an agenda out, that I'll focus on getting them done. And
I think that was quite high interest in a document that I haven't seen, so I was quite intrigued to read that. Thank you. There's no further questions on that report. The recommendation to receive it is on page 323, that the report be received. Wallace has moved that and seconded by Councillor Sutherland. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Right. And then attached there, councillors, is the correspondence that has gone to various ministers. There is a second wave of letters that have gone to regional mayors and chairs. And then there will also be some to Waka Kotahi, and finally with the Prime Minister. So those are all in the line, I guess. The one I would comment on, I've had a couple of responses. So Minister Patterson has forwarded the correspondence to Minister Brown, and I did get a response from a staff member regarding that it had been received from Celia Wade Brown. But the response from the regional mayors is looking very, very positive. I've also had some correspondence with the Motorhome Association, which is looking very positive too. Okay. Right. Portfolio reports. Sorry. Oh. Councillor Gilmore will move that the correspondence is received, seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Portfolio reports. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. There is one thing that I wanted to particularly talk about, and that was the incredible public meeting that we had in Woodville to unite against tolling. So I just did want to put it on the record for a start, my thanks to Positively Woodville for holding that meeting, and to Vicky Tomlinson for all their efforts involved. I did want to also thank Mr. Collis for his huge efforts in organising additional seating. So a huge thank you to Mike Collis for that. I wanted to also put on the record my thanks to Councillor Wallace for organising and managing the sound system, even though sometimes there was some driver error. It certainly wasn't through the operator. So thank you very much to Councillor Wallace and board member Ron Wallace for helping with that. I wanted to thank every single councillor that came along, or the councillors that couldn't, that sent their well wishes. But mostly though, I want to thank the people of Woodville for supporting it. The entire district, we had people from all over the district at that meeting, and the huge number of people from outside of our district from coming. So it was a really important meeting that we had. That's given the campaign for toll-free Tararua some real momentum, and I'm certainly looking forward to the meeting tonight. So I just wanted to add that, and thank you, Mayor Tracy.
Are you going to comment on the Woodville? Yes, I just thought I'd also pass our thanks on to you, Councillor Gilmore, for a well-chaired meeting and for a lot of assistance in the community around organising that. They are not simple meetings, but it was outlined well. And yeah, thank you very, very much for that as well. Yeah. Councillor Wards.
One definite portfolio and another one that I believe would be of interest to council in the room today. So just those of you who, all of you received an invite to Heather Monk's Civic Award last Saturday. What a fantastic It was just fantastic. So, I've acknowledged Lavon's organisation behind the scenes, but for all of us in that room, it was a very special acknowledgement, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her name up there. Heather has personified what volunteering and looking after a community all those years is about, and she had a bit of a dig in politics, but she also covered off very well all of her involvement, and it was just so lovely to hear the buzz in the room of people there to celebrate someone very special. So I just want to thank, on behalf of the Pongaroa community, all the organisation that went on behind the scenes from everyone here at council. The other item I'd like to report on, Your Worship, with your discretion, is I've been away for the last 2 days at the AGM and planning day for Rural Support Trust, which is 4 regional trusts within one. So it spans from Gisborne, Tairāwhiti through to Wairarapa. And I just wanted to let everyone know in the room that there's been some fairly big changes in the governance structure of that organisation. So within Tararua Regional Trust itself, Simon Curran, the trustee that's been on there for 3 years, has stood down and has been replaced by someone we all know called Lee Ransom. So we have a new trustee in Tararua. At the higher level, Clint Worthington, who's been chair of East Coast Rural Support Trust across the trust, has been there for just over 2 years. And myself, as part of originally the Tararua RST, but lately as strategy advisor to the ECRST, has stood down as well. So the point I wish to make is that 3 of we were called the legacy leavers rather than the deserters, but 3 of the 4 trustees or members of RST that stood down, 3 of them came from Tararua, and it represents 20 years of input from this district into a widely loved and well supported national organisation. The good news also, as well as Lee joining the team from Tararua, the new chair is Lisa Sims, who comes from Ekatahuna. And so as the old brooms were getting out the door, the new ones were getting into action. But I just wish to acknowledge that Tararua has certainly punched well above its weight when it comes to that organisation, and the future will have some very strong voices. The treasurer and deputy chair is Janine Swanson. So Tararua is certainly leading from the front for that wonderful organisation. So just wish to share that with other councillors. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. And I'll try and make a note, because though those trustees have probably led through one of the toughest times, and the hours that they've given, and the heavy heart and the heavy burden that's been there has been incredible. So our sincere thanks.
Just a little bit of background, Mayor Tracy. So Tony Rhodes used to be the chair through illness and a really quick decision 2 years ago at the AGM. It was Clint Worthington that stood up, and I'd convinced my husband Simon that it's just quiet little job, nice little trust, easy peasy. So he became a trustee within Tararua, and within 2 or 3 months, Gabriel hit. And so Clint has been powering around the country. He's just led right from the front. Dear Simon in the background, and because of an illness of the financial administrator, him and I have been running the finances for the last 6 months of the whole East Coast Rural Support Trust. So we're kind of looking forward to not having RST in our language every weekend and most nights. But I thought it was worthy to hear that Tararua is certainly powered through, and we'll look to the future for a big voice from them again.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work in there as well. Really appreciated. Just on Heather Monk's Civic Award, I think Heather was a reluctant recipient. I think I did say quietly that, I called her at a weak moment to get her to accept that award, but she was very, very nervous about it. One of the things that I like the most about our Civic Awards is that they are about one person. They're about celebrating one person in their community in the way that they want that to be celebrated. And she was very, very nervous, but she thoroughly enjoyed her afternoon, as did the community. They were really thrilled with it. So no, it was a lovely afternoon. So thank you to the councillors that came, and thank you very much for the speech and the words and the laughter for Heather, who is another person who led her community through Cyclone Gabrielle and COVID and some really big times. So it'd be nice to see her name up there as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Sutherland. I thought you put your hand up. Oh, I was looking forward to your report.
Well, nothing to report, but I can say that I did mingle with Kahanunu's Kamatu and Rarotonga and flew the flag on a few occasions. So I'm sure a number of places in Rarotonga knew where we came from. It sounded like it was the day that was great for them too, but it was good for some of us Danny Burkians to catch up with all the ladies there. But that's all I'll say about that. Mostly it was, yes.
Councillor Sutherland, and as the news broke around the toll, I did try not to message Councillor Sutherland, but I did send one official text to say, have you seen Hayden on the island? I need to get in touch. So you did have some official business locked into that as well. There, Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Wish. I'll just do a brief update on the Polish reunion, which is 5 weeks away. It's creeping up very, very fast. We've started the work on the tidy up out at the memorial. We've had the stumps removed and some trees taken out. We've got a big working bee coming up. We've been fighting the weather, as everybody has been. And so we're very hopeful that October will be a lot kinder to us because there's a fair bit of work still to do out there. And that's quite vital. Thanks to, I contacted Carsten, and Carsten has given us Nigel for the Saturday and Friday and Saturday to help with sound and all of the stuff that he knows best. Me, Tracy, I've been asked to follow up on the invites for the 1st Battalion and the Medical Corps from Linton. What they're proposing now is they couldn't get a train. The issue with the train was the railway between the Wairarapa line basically was going to be reopened in time, but it doesn't look like it is now. Plus the cost was through the roof. So they will be coming up by bus now, which is great because that gives us our transport covered when they're there, and that's paid for by the Polish Association. I spoke with Brian today because those buses will all be arriving in Kiwi Street at much the same time, around 1:30 in the afternoon on the Friday. I needed to make sure that we had some sort of safety protection for being able to shut that road off briefly while we offload all of the visitors that are coming. There probably could be up to 200 people in those buses. Last time they offloaded them on the main street and it was a bit of a disaster. So this time we've thought, no, we needed to have them round at the town hall. So that's all covered off. Catering's all organised. We've sort of done most of the prep work, but now it's a bit of a shoulder to the plough for the finish to the finishing line. And unfortunately, Gilda and Andrew are away for 10 days of that time. So we have a meeting on Monday, so I'll update them there. But I'd really like to ask if there are any councillors that can offer a hand though on one of those or to both of those days. It'd be really gratefully received. Tararua College are providing waitresses for the luncheon, and the Kapahaka group will be performing. We have Dave Dobbin coming to sing Welcome Home in English and in Māori. Absolutely fabulous. He agreed to do that on the understanding that we just paid his and his wife's airfares up and back in a night's accommodation, and the Police Association put their hand in their pocket for that. So that's just fabulous. And so the Polish dancers are coming up, and what's really cool about that too is they're staying out at Pukaha Mount Bruce, which would be another unique experience for them that kind of ties in with Porana, the Kiwi, and so it's just all coming together really well. It's a lot of work, and you know, to be fair, everybody's getting older, including the people who will be attending. So we've got a fairly full program. We're involving the businesses in town. They've agreed to decorate all their shop windows in a Polish theme. We're really encouraging the people coming to visit to use the cafes and the takeaways and things like that, so that they actually get something back out of it as well. We'll be using the town centre gardens on the Saturday for a lot of events. So we'll have the Polish dancers there, the 1st Battalion. We would like the medical corps to escort the buses in. They're going to come along Scarborough Road and actually go to the railway station where they originally landed, and then the trucks will lead them into town. Pahiatua School will be in Mangahau Road with their flags. And we're trying to encourage, and the other primary schools I'm sure will get involved as well. One little girl from Pahiatua School, Summer would be, I don't know, she's 8 or 9. She's going to sing the Polish national anthem in Polish, which is on her own, which is pretty outstanding. So a lot of involvement with the children of the community, which we feel is really, really vital, because we need to keep this, even though this will be the last Polish reunion, there are plans ahead for the displaced people of Europe who came into the camp after the Polish children. They will pick up the gauntlet then and have some events and still use our memorial site and be able to do that as well. So it's ongoing. There aren't terribly many of the children left, but the ancestors are all of the younger generation are really determined to keep the relationship going with Pahiatua. They value our community so much. So yeah, and just briefly on Connect Tararua, we're still having a bit of a stumbling block with the Norsewood Tower, which is getting rather frustrating. I've actually just sent Amy an email for some help. We've had a bit of a roadblock. Nobody, the RCG and the CIP are both telling us 2 different things, so we need to kind of find out why the delay. Norsewood are tearing their hair out. The tower on the highway is still not functioning correctly. It never has since the arson attack. And of course, Spark have divested themselves of all their towers now. And now it's Towerco. And guess who's in charge at Towerco? Caitlin. So we've got a contact there, which is very vital. So Caitlin was with the RCG when we went through the RCG project through the district. So we've got those contacts in place, but it is very frustrating for Norsewood, and we do feel for them, but we are still working on it. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic stuff. You've been incredibly busy and certainly fully involved in the Polish reunion. So thank you very much for that. Okay. Is there anything further?
We went out to Norsewood the other day with the Westwell Mayor in tow. And it was a good day, wasn't it? A night, I should say. And that was to do the celebration of the refurbishment of the Boer War remembrance. As you go up to Norsewood, you'll see it on the left, which if you've never been and partaken in a Anzac parade out there, we start off there at the remembrance plaque to the Boer War, which was to do with a certain person. And then we march from there down to the cenotaph at the other end of the town, which has been a tradition at Norsewood for as long as I can remember, and many, many years before me. So what's happened is that, as you know, the sale of the hall down there has got funds, and reading between the lines, this is all going to be refurbished with a very keen working party from out there. But it was really good for Trace, the mayor, and I, and Ron, and the community, Terry Hines, to go out and just show the flag from the council. So yeah, it was a good. No one asked about their water, so it was good. It was a good night out.
Always good. You know, we talk about our community and our volunteers, but not only are they restoring the memorial, but actually they've got developed plans that they'd like to beautify that area as well, and they are giving consideration to maintenance and things like that. So that's, you know, fantastic stuff, and I've got every confidence that they'll get that done. Yeah, they were starting.
Did you say they were updating the hall? No.
The tail of the hall down below, you know, at lower Norsewood, that those funds went, and they need to disperse them in the community.
It's Northwood Lines, it is this one.
Thank you, councillors. I'll ask someone if they can move us into the public excluded item of business. Moved councillor Johns and seconded councillor Sutherland. And then councillors, we might take a 15-minute adjournment for a quick refreshment break. Okay, thank you. So
That, I'll beat you.